Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Friday Reads. And in case you're wondering, because it is the beginning of July, it's the 2nd today. Where are my tops and flops of June? I decided to do the mid-year freakout, the mid-year book freakout tag. That video will be up on Sunday, so 2 days from now, and that is sort of incorporating my June tops and flops. So don't worry, I will continue with the tops and flops in July, of course, but for June, I felt it was kind of repetitive to do the mid-year book freakout tag and a June tops and flops. Anyway, so first, the book that I finished the longest ago, sort of. I don't know whether that is English grammar, but anyway, the book that I finished, I think in the around the 20th of June or something, and that is The Door by Magda Szabo, translated from the Hungarian by Len Riggs. The original Hungarian book was published in 1987, and the English translation, and of course I have to look that up again, 2005. And this book has been on my radar for a really, really long time. I read one other book by Szabo that I quite liked, not Of the Moon Love, but quite liked. But everybody who read more of Szabo told me you should read The Door. And I buddy read that. This with Heidi from My Reading Life, and I will leave a link to her review down below because of course, she's more up to date than I am. So she posted a review, I think, a week ago or something. And no spoiler alert, we both really, really enjoyed the book. It's a very quiet novel about two women. We have the narrator, who is a writer in Hungary in the late 1950s. That's when the book starts, but it spans then more than a decade and a half. The writer, the narrator, is also called Magda, and she has just been allowed to publish again after the end of the Stalin influence regime in Hungary. And she needs a housekeeper, and she gets to know Emerence, an older woman who does, cleaning for other people. And then the whole book is the development of the relationship between Magda and Emerence, but also about Emerence and her backstory. So it's like an onion peel, we learn more and more about Emerence's background, because she is quite a strange woman, strange behaviors she displays. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, even though it has practically no plot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening, but there is no plot, like an event that starts the book and then you have an arc and an ending, a solution. But I enjoyed the political aspect of it, so that we learn something about Hungary in that period after the mid-1950s. But I also really enjoyed the themes that are tackled. And one of the big themes is how do you deal with a friend or a family member or what have you that does something that's not good for him or her, but it's what she, in this case, she wants. And having an elderly mother, and struggling, or struggling is too strong a word, but contemplating the fact that you should give people their own decision making. They should be able to make their own decisions, even if it's not what you think is best for them, as long as they are mentally fit. You just have to deal with it. So I think the book that was the reason why the book resonated with me so much. I have to say, both of the characters, Emerence and the narrator Magda, are very unlikable people. And I can certainly understand if there are readers who are just fed up after the half or 20% or whatever with these two women, because it is all about these two women. So I can't, I mean, I loved it and I would certainly recommend it if you are into that. But I think you should give it a try. And if both women irritate you too much, then the book is probably not for you. The second book I finished, and I want to talk really briefly, is another book of the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist, and that is Susanna Clarke Piranesi, which was published in 2020. I'm not going to talk long about this book because I made a full review, which is already up, and I will leave a link to that review down in the show notes. Susanna Clarke is most known, I think, for her previous novel, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which she published 1.5 decades ago, 17 years ago or something. And this one is much shorter because her previous book is, I think, 700 or 800 pages. Was not for me, by the way. And this one is, I would say, a fantasy mystery mix. Our main character, Piranesi, lives in this labyrinth that looks like a Greek palace from long ago, with statues, marble statues, and there's water beneath, an ocean in the basement, and it's definitely not a place of this world. And in the course of the book, we learn how he got there and what the point of this place was, and the other characters that play a role in the book, how they fit into this narrative. I really enjoyed this story. It's not for everyone, certainly not. But like I said, if you're interested to learn more, with some spoilers of the plot, I have to warn you, you can check out my full review. The next book I finished is a collection of longer short stories, almost novellas, and that is Ursula Le Guin, 5 Ways to Forgiveness, published in this edition with the 5 Ways to Forgiveness in 1999. There is another version published 4 years earlier, 1995, which is called 4 Ways to Forgiveness. And that is because the last story in this collection, the Old Music and the Slave Woman, was written and published in 1999, and then they added it to the collection. I buddy read this with Adam from Memento Mori, because we are making our way through the Hainish cycle of Ursula Le Guin. She doesn't need an introduction, one of the most well-known and in my opinion, best sci-fi writers of the 20th century. And this one is I think the 6th or the 7th book. There are obviously 5, not 4, no, 5 stories in this collection. And they all center around the same world with 2 planets. You have Werel and Yeove, I think you pronounce it, and both planets have had slavery, and then you had a revolution first on one planet, then on the other. You also have they are part of, or want to become part of, what Ursula Le Guin calls the Acumen, which is the United Nations in her Hainish cycle, so to speak, the United Nations of planets. And we get different aspects of different people living on either planet in different positions. So from the point of view of an ex-slave woman, but also from the point of view from a soldier, we get the point of view of an Acumen, not an ambassador, but a security officer. Old Music, the last one. And the overarching theme is certainly discussion of slavery, but also violence, war, how people react to that, how the different ways you can quote unquote deal with it. So it is almost like a novel in 5 stories, because it's all in the same world and you will have recurring characters, but it's not a linear story from the first novella or a short story to the last. I really, really enjoyed this collection. Not all of the stories for me were equally strong. I liked the second story called Forgiveness Day best, but because they are all dealing with the same world, I felt that even the stories that I thought were weaker were actually stronger because they were part of this collection, if this makes sense. If I had maybe read one of the weaker stories, the ones that I considered weaker, if I had read that just individually in a magazine or something, I probably would have liked it less, even though it's the same story, than I did like it now, because it's part of this collection and you get all these pieces of a puzzle of this very complex world. And also I felt that the whole thing was more than just 5 stories. It was a whole. It was not a novel, but it was a whole. So I thought it was really interesting how Le Guin crafts this world, how she gives you aspects of all kinds of people dealing with slavery, suppression, oppression, women's liberation, revolution, war. So yeah, it's at times quite violent. There's obviously in a war, so there is death and torture and starvation and what have you. So it's not an easygoing collection, but I thought it was really, really good, and I enjoyed our journey. I'm enjoying our journey through the Hainish cycle. In August, we will read the last book in the Hainish cycle, and that will be The Telling. So I'm looking forward to that. The next novel I finished was also not an easy read, because it's about how people with mental illness were treated, especially women were treated in the 1940s. And this book is Mary Jane Ward, The Snake Pit, first published in 1946. I buddy read this with Kim from Middle of the Book March, and like Heidi, she's much more up to date, so she has already posted a review, and I will leave a link to her video down below as well. And again, spoiler alert, we both thought it was a really good book. Mary Jane Ward was herself, it's autobiographical, because the author herself was committed to a mental institution in the 1940s, and a couple of times again in later in life, but it is still a novel. So the main character is called Virginia, and she's a writer as well. And when the book opens, we are already in the institution, and then we learn about her background a little bit, about her work, but we also get I would say a glimpse into her mind while being delusional, and with ups and downs. So it's sometimes she is much more lucid in the beginning, certainly, and then she deteriorates towards the middle, and so it is really the novel is the structure and the way it's told follows the mental state of this main protagonist, and that also means that it's quite weirdly done with regards to point of view. So you have first person, then you have third person, you have the second person, and in rapid succession sometimes. And the more confusing this the point of views and this change in point of views is, the more confused, obviously, the main character is in her head. So it's in the beginning you think, what kind of weird way of writing is that? But once you realize that it actually is following the structure, is a means to tell you something about the mind of the main character, Virginia. I thought that was brilliantly done. And the way we get not only a glimpse into her mind, but also obviously quite a bleak story about treatment, quote unquote, whether it's electroshock or whether it's being in the sort of a cold bath or something for hours and days, because that's supposed to help. Like Kim mentioned in her video, this book was the first book that addressed the issue of treatment of mental illness, and it did start a discussion, and it did start change. So it's I thought it was really good, except for the sticker, the non-removable sticker that the Library of America thought would be a good idea, to adorn this beautiful edition with that sticker. I'm just beyond. But it's a good book still. And then the books that I'm currently reading or planning to read, I'm almost finished with the last book that I have to read for the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist, How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherry Jones. Cherry Jones is a writer from Barbados, and this is her debut novel, and it's set on Barbados. At the town is fictional, but it's still set on the real island. The town is called Baxter's Beach, and it centers around the lives of two women, one being Lala, a poor woman struggling to make ends meet, and her abusive husband, and Mira, who is married to a very rich English man. So you would say living the good life, but not all is what it seems. It's quite violent and relentlessly so, which it can be off-putting because for some people, because you don't have a kind of, you can't take a breather here. But so far, I'm almost done, 2/3 in. I should be, because I want to put up the review tomorrow. But I think it's really good, and certainly for a debut. So yeah, I'm looking forward in a sense to finishing this one, even though it's not, it's not enjoyable to read about all the violence, but it's still good. And I think I will pick up this one, a reread of Jane Austen, Persuasion, because it is, after all, Jane Austen July. And I thought I'm not going to participate in the readathon, but I at least want to reread one of Jane Austen's books, and Persuasion is one of my favorites. Yes, not Sense and Sensibility, not one of the big ones, Pride and Prejudice. I think they are okay. I hate Emma, but this one and Mansfield Park are my two favorites, and I decided for Persuasion, simple because it's shorter, so I can get the reading in more quickly. And other than that, I don't know yet what I'm gonna read. We'll see. We'll just let the mood take us somewhere. So I will keep you posted probably next week. And I think because I'm away again for the whole of next week until Friday, if I film a video, it will be on Sunday. But I don't know yet. Anyway, this was it for my this week's Friday read. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.